Another charity gala, another forced smile, another room full of people who thought they knew me. Ava, darling, you look fantastic, always so streamlined. That was Carol, bless her heart, CEO of a struggling social media app, perpetually fishing for advice. I smiled, a practiced curve. Thank you, Carol, just keeping it simple. Simple, the ultimate understatement. They saw the consultant, the minimalist, the woman with the impeccable taste and the understated apartment in Pacific Heights. They saw a woman who probably scraped by. They had no idea. My phone vibrated. A notification. One of my holdings, a biotech startup, was greenlit for FDA approval. Another win. Another secret stashed away. I excused myself, gliding past the champagne flutes and the hushed conversations. Back at the hotel, I logged into the holding company portal. The numbers were obscene. Millions, billions even, all built on a foundation of what? Betrayal? Determination? I was 36, single and utterly, undeniably wealthy. And no one, not even Carol with her probing questions, had a clue. 10 years. It started with a crisp official letter. Acceptance, everywhere. Stanford, Berkeley, UCLA. My future laid out in neat, academic lines. Then my parents, their eyes bright with the same feverish gleam that always accompanied Kevin's schemes. The college fund, gone. $250,000 diverted to prop up Kevin's revolutionary app, a social media platform that would, predictably, crash and burn. The betrayal. It was a hot, searing brand. My mother's choked apology, my father's dismissive wave. He's your brother, Sarah. Family comes first. As if my ambitions, my dreams, were some frivolous hobby, secondary to Kevin's self-proclaimed genius. That night, I packed a single duffel bag, the only possession of value I had. Inside, my laptop, my textbooks, and a burning sense of injustice. I left a note. I'll make you proud. It was a lie. I wasn't seeking their approval. I was escaping. The first year was brutal. I took on a part-time job as a waitress and enrolled in a community college. The hours were long. The pay was minimal. But I learned. I devoured every business textbook I could find. I spent every spare moment learning to code. I scraped together enough to take online courses. I couldn't afford the university I dreamed of attending, but I was still getting an education. My first real break, a freelance gig designing a website for a local real estate firm, $500. I spent $400 on a used laptop and $100 on food and a cheap motel room. I lived like that for months. I kept my head down. I worked. I learned. The moment I decided to go underground was a quiet one. A small venture capital firm, impressed by my work, offered a seed round for a tech startup I was advising. The deal was lucrative, but the application required a background check. I could apply as myself and reveal my true identity, or I could create a new identity, someone less likely to be tied to my family's mistakes. I chose a new name, a new persona, Ava. I built Clear Path Consulting, the company that would become my empire from the ground up, cloaked in anonymity. The satisfaction was immense. The early wins, the small tech businesses I helped, the undervalued companies I invested in. Each success was a deliberate act of defiance. Each new metric a private victory. The burden, though, was heavy. The constant vigilance, the isolation I had to hide. The world would not know who I was, not yet. Now I stand in my penthouse office, overlooking the city, and I feel the familiar weight of the secret, the empire built on a lie. My phone buzzes again. A message from my assistant. My parents, they need to see me. Kevin's latest disaster. The desperation. The inevitable reckoning is here. The meeting is set. Time to unveil the truth. A controlled calculation pulsed through me. I surveyed the data. Clear Path Consulting had generated $12 million in revenue last year. The biotech startup, now valued at $800 million, was just the tip of the iceberg. My portfolio of companies, carefully structured through a web of holding companies and trusts, Ironclad Ventures, Silverline Holdings, Obsidian Capital, represented a diversified asset base worth over $3 billion. My primary residence, a minimalist penthouse in San Francisco overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge, was just one of the many properties under my control. I also owned a vineyard in Napa, a private jet, and a sprawling estate in the Hamptons. None of this was visible. To the world, I was simply a successful, well-regarded consultant with a taste for fine things. Every interaction was a performance. At the charity gala, Carol's struggling social media app, I discreetly purchased a significant stake in a competitor 6 months prior, a company poised to acquire her platform for a tidy profit. The irony was exquisite. She was unknowingly feeding the beast I'd created, the beast that would ultimately devour her dreams. My network was vast, spanning venture capitalists, tech moguls, and political figures. I sat on the boards of multiple companies, influencing decisions that shape the future of technology and society. The people I encountered daily, fellow consultants, potential investors, even the occasional journalist had no idea they were sharing a room with one of the most powerful, influential, and wealthy people in the Bay Area. The morning of the meeting, I dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit. I was armed with a detailed presentation, showing how ClearPath's consulting work had been a mere cover. The real game was in strategic acquisitions and investments. The numbers would be brutal. Kevin's latest venture, Innovate Now, was a digital marketing platform projected to burn through $5 million in the next year. My analysis showed it was, as I predicted, doomed. I wanted to see their faces. The moment they realized that the woman they dismissed, the girl they abandoned, had built a world beyond their wildest dreams. The moment they understood the magnitude of their error. I walked into the sterile conference room, the air thick with anticipation. My parents and Kevin were already seated, their faces a mixture of anxiety and false confidence. I smiled, a professional, composed smile, and began my presentation, the numbers flashing across the screen. ClearPath Consulting, I said, my voice even, has delivered exceptional results for its clients. Last year's revenue, $12 million. Our investments, however, tell a different story. I clicked the remote. Ironclad Ventures, our primary investment arm, controls a portfolio valued at over $2 billion. Silverline Holdings, a strategic acquisition company, is worth over $1 billion. And the tech startup, which you may have been using, is projected to be worth $800 million after it goes public. I paused, letting the numbers sink in. Then I focused on their faces. Kevin shifted uncomfortably. My mother's eyes began to well up. My father stared, his face a mask of shock. The funding you are seeking, I continued, my voice calm, is not available. Innovate Now is a losing proposition. I pointed to the screen. And by the way, do you know whose investment would pay for your business? I paused again. I leaned forward. It's mine, I said finally. My voice, a cold, clear blade, cut through the room. Ava. I let the name hang in the air, the single word a dismantling of the facade I'd so carefully constructed. Kevin's jaw dropped. My mother gasped. My father, for the first time, looked truly vulnerable. The carefully crafted presentation shifted to a new slide. A photograph. A faded image of a young woman, barely 18, standing on a dusty road, a single duffel bag at her feet. The woman was holding up a hand, as if to say goodbye. I was Sarah, I said, the name a foreign echo in the sterile room. The room turned silent. The image on the screen slowly faded into the face of the woman before them. My face. I watched them, felt their shock. I let the truth hang, a tapestry of ambition and betrayal woven over 10 years of relentless work. I had become something they could never have imagined. They sought my help, thinking I was a consultant, someone to offer guidance. Instead, I was the storm. I was the wealth. I was the reckoning. My parents were staring at the image. They were broken. They were on my terms. Innovate Now, I said, is going nowhere. I watched the color drain from Kevin's face. I have a better proposal. I gestured towards the door. Let's talk terms. The immediate silence shattered. Kevin sputtered, a string of profanities erupting before he could stop them. His face, usually a mask of self-assuredness, crumpled. Sarah, this is some kind of joke. My mother, her carefully applied mascara now streaked with tears, reached for my hand, a desperate, pleading gesture. Ava, Sarah, honey, we didn't understand. My father, his face a mask of granite just moments before, now showed a flicker of something akin to shame. He didn't speak, but his eyes, usually sharp and critical, were wide with disbelief and perhaps a dawning realization of the chasm that had opened between us. I didn't move, didn't flinch. I felt a cold detachment, as if I were observing a play. The power shifted in that moment, the air crackling with the weight of their misjudgment. Kevin, ever the opportunist, attempted a weak smile. Well, sis, looks like you did all right. Congratulations. Maybe we can work together, collaborate, leverage our combined resources. I cut him off with a look. No, Kevin, there will be no collaboration. The word hung in the air, a declaration. My parents, humbled and desperate, shifted in their seats. We made a mistake, my mother finally choked out, her voice barely a whisper. A terrible mistake. We can fix this. We need to fix this. My father nodded, shame etched onto his features. I allowed myself a small, almost imperceptible smile. The victory wasn't in their apologies, which were hollow. It was in the realization that their actions had created the very person they were now forced to confront. Let's be clear, I said, my voice now steady, controlled. I will provide the funding, but on my terms. I laid out the stipulations: a controlling interest in Innovate Now, complete operational control, and a public acknowledgement of my role in the company's success. Kevin sputtered again, but my father silenced him with a sharp look. They knew they had no choice. Their future, their very existence, was now in my hands. The tables had turned. The girl they abandoned had become the woman they needed, but on my terms. The meeting ended with a handshake, a formality that felt surreal. The air was filled with the tension of a fragile truce. The world had changed irreversibly. The immediate aftermath was a whirlwind. The news spread, starting with the close circle of people in the conference room, each person spreading the word to others. I received dozens of calls, emails, and text messages. Some offered congratulations. Others were filled with incredulity and thinly veiled inquiries about investment opportunities. My phone buzzed with a notification from a family member, a cousin whom I had not spoken to in years. They were asking for a loan. Another person saw this as an opportunity. The old wounds, however, remained. They were scarred, but I was not broken. They were just scars, reminding me of the past, of the work I did, and the person I had become. I knew I'd lost something by revealing myself, a piece of my past. But at the end of the day, I knew I had won. My life, once a tightly controlled narrative, fractured, then reorganized. Relationships, once predictable, swirled. The first to change was Carol. A week after the revelation, she cornered me at a tech conference. "Ava Sarah," she stammered, her usual breezy confidence gone. "That biotech, the one you helped fund, it's extraordinary." She paused, suddenly self-conscious. "And Innovate Now, well, I'm so sorry, we clearly misjudged." I simply smiled, a genuine smile this time. "It happens, Carol, and Innovate Now is going to be a great success." I knew she was angling for a new round of investment, a chance to get in on the ground floor. I subtly redirected her, setting her up with a smaller, more manageable venture that offered her the validation she craved. My parents, now dependent, were a constant presence. Kevin, predictably, continued to be a liability. He tried to ingratiate himself, offering to help with my various ventures, his attempts clumsy and transparent. I kept him at arm's length, delegating him to menial tasks, the irony of his newfound subservience a constant source of quiet amusement. My mother, surprisingly, became almost docile, constantly seeking my approval, offering unsolicited advice. I saw the fear in her eyes, the realization that she had destroyed her daughter's future. I did not hate her, but I could not trust her. My father, however, still struggled. He attempted to offer advice, but I shut him down. He had lost my trust. The world saw me differently. The scrutiny increased. Journalists hounded me, seeking profiles, trying to piece together the mystery of Ava/Sarah. I found myself in the spotlight, a position I had always avoided. I was forced to hire a team of public relations experts, and as a result, I was forced to attend galas and conferences. My past, once a carefully guarded secret, became a topic of public interest. People wanted to know how I did it. They wanted to understand the transformation, the journey from a shattered dream to a multi-billion-dollar empire. The old wounds remained, but they were no longer raw. They were scars, reminders of the betrayal, the pain, and the determination that had fueled my rise. I realized that, in many ways, the past had vanished. I saw them occasionally, Kevin and my mother and my father, out and about, attending the same events as I. The shift in power was palpable. They would look at me, their faces a mix of admiration, respect, and a hint of lingering resentment. I'd simply smile, a genuine smile that felt good. I was no longer the girl with the duffel bag. I was Ava. I was Sarah. I was both. And I was finally free. I began to mentor young women, offering guidance and resources. I started a foundation dedicated to supporting women in tech and providing scholarships for underprivileged students. I wanted to help them avoid the mistakes my parents had made. The long-term consequences were just beginning to unfold. The family dynamic had changed, and I was not sure if the relationships would ever fully heal. I had gained power. I had gained respect. I had gained the freedom to be myself, but I had also lost a part of my past. My family, in some ways, would always be broken. I knew that the burden of the past would linger, but I embraced my newfound freedom. I was the master of my own fate. And the future, for the first time, felt limitless. The image of the young woman with the duffel bag remained, a constant reminder of the power of self-belief. And now I had the power to shape the world one venture, one investment, one young woman at a time. The story had just begun. I walked the familiar streets of Pacific Heights, the city lights blurring into streaks of gold against the darkening sky. The air, crisp with the scent of eucalyptus and impending rain, felt different. Heavier. The world had changed. The most immediate change was the phone. It never stopped buzzing. Calls from old colleagues, new acquaintances, and even distant relatives. The tone had shifted. They weren't just seeking advice anymore. They were angling for opportunities, investment, connections. The casual dinners and friendly conversations were replaced with thinly veiled pitches and requests. I learned to screen my calls, to curate my responses, to filter the noise. My apartment, once a sanctuary of minimalist order, felt less private. Even the doorman at my building, usually stoic and efficient, now greeted me with a deferential nod and a knowing smile. The anonymity I had carefully cultivated was gone. I could no longer walk through life unnoticed. The old wounds, the raw sting of betrayal, had begun to scab over, but they were still visible. My relationship with my parents remained strained. Kevin's attempts at reconciliation were as transparent as ever, his true motivation, access to my wealth, evident in every clumsy gesture. My mother, burdened by guilt, hovered, offering help I didn't need and advice I didn't want. My father, ever the proud patriarch, remained reserved, the silence between us more potent than any words. Yet, amidst the chaos, a sense of liberation began to bloom. I embraced the freedom to be transparent, to be authentic. I spoke at conferences, sharing my story, using it as a platform to mentor young women entrepreneurs. I established a fund to support underrepresented talent in the tech industry, a small act of defiance against the injustice that had shaped my life. The success of Innovate Now was a constant reminder of my power. I had rescued a failing venture, transforming it into a profitable enterprise. This was not about revenge, it was about control. I became the architect of Kevin's success, and in doing so, kept a tight rein on his future. The challenges were constant. The pressure to maintain my success, to prove myself worthy of the attention I now received, weighed heavily. I was no longer just building a business, I was building a legacy. But the scars, the reminders of the past, served a purpose. They fueled my drive, reminding me of the strength I had found in adversity. They were a constant testament to my resilience. One evening, at a fundraising gala, I saw my father standing alone, watching me. His face, usually impassive, softened as he saw the small smile on my face. I walked toward him, the crowd parting to give us space. "You've done well, Sarah," he said, his voice low. "Very well." I nodded, the words echoing the sentiment I had held for so long. I didn't need his approval. I had built my own. "I hope one day we can be a family again," he added. "Perhaps," I replied, looking out at the glittering city. "Time will tell." As the rain began to fall, I knew this was just the beginning. My past had shaped me, but my future was yet to be written. The next chapter, the ultimate act of defining my legacy, was about to begin. The city lights blurred, reflecting in the rain-slicked streets, a shimmering tapestry of potential. I stand now, not on a dusty road with a single bag, but at the precipice of a new dawn. The empire remains, a fortress of ambition and strategy, yet the true riches lie elsewhere. I gained power, influence, and the vindication of a long-held dream. I lost the carefree innocence of youth, the simple joy of familial acceptance. The secrecy, once a shield, became a gilded cage, isolating me from the very people I sought to impress. Success, I now understand, is not a destination but a constantly evolving landscape, a dance between ambition and introspection. The world sees a woman who has it all, a woman who built an empire from nothing. But the truest victory lies in the silent whisper of self-acceptance, the quiet recognition of the girl who, with a single duffel bag and a burning desire, dared to defy expectations. I am no longer defined by their betrayal, but by the unwavering belief in my own potential. I see her still, that 18-year-old in every calculated move, every strategic investment, every act of defiance. She is my compass, my constant companion, the silent witness to the transformation. The cost was high, the road was long, but I built my success on a foundation of self-belief. And now, with the rain washing over the city, I know, you too have faced your own storms. You too have been underestimated, dismissed, or misunderstood. What will you build?